They are combat sports power couple. I can't say MMA because now at least one of them does everything in combat sports. It is always my great pleasure to speak to both Paige VanZant and her wonderful husband, fighter Austin Vanderford. How are you guys?
We're good. We're back in Florida from Vegas and hanging out with our dogs and living life.
Yeah.
I saw you got a new rescue. I was very excited about that. That was our second dog as well. We got a rescue for our second dog as well.
We did. She's right here.
Yeah, she's a cute,
the cutest little baby ever. So now we have two rescues. Her name's Jackie, and then Dennis, who we've had for 11 years.
Yeah.
I love dogs with regular names. Like I adore that. Like ours don't. My dogs are Hopper and Brody, but I love when dogs have regular names. I think it's so adorable.
Well,
yeah.
Her full name is Jackson May. We named her after the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Nice. I love it. So obviously lots and lots to talk about, but I can't not start with what happened this past weekend with Power Slap. Paige, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've not been a Power Slap guy. Outside of watching highlights on Dana White's social media, which is kind of unavoidable, I'm not a big Power Slap guy. So when you signed, I was like, really? Paige is doing Power Slap? Now, I know you talked about a little bit on your podcast, The Kick-Ass Love Story on YouTube. You guys do an incredible show. You said it was like 2 weeks ago that you got the call. So was it literally them just calling and reaching out to Malky and saying, hey, would Paige be interested?
Yeah. So my manager and I don't even know how it happened. We just kind of were talking about Power Slap, how crazy it was. We were at lunch and I was like, well, yeah, I would do it. And he was like, no. And I was like, no, seriously, I would. And then all of a sudden it just kind of, I think I talked to Dana on the phone about it and I was like, yeah, let's do it. I got the contract that same week. And then I found out they wanted me on the Vegas card and it was, 2 weeks away. And I was like, well, there's like no time like the present. I don't have time to stress about it or really get too nervous. I just wanted to be like thrown in the fire. So it was honestly like the best case scenario.
Now, Austin, your reaction when you announced the news was my reaction, which is, I don't know how I feel about this. Now, I know you had a different opinion afterwards, but because I want to be clear, you said this on your podcast, so clear. You never let Paige do anything. She's going to do what she wants to do. But you had my reaction, which is like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, when this all came up and, and we had mentioned it maybe like a month ago or something, the possibility maybe one day. And same as you, neither one of us were really a fan. We were, to be honest, we were in the same category of people who are like, this is the craziest, like, this is just brain damage waiting to happen but when she was like, hey, I'm going to do this. And, we got this really great opportunity. I was very much, like, really, damn it, babe, is this really what we're going to do? But, if this is what the itch that you got, let's go for it. And so, I always support what she wants to do. And the more I tell her I don't want her to do it, the more she wants to do it. So I can't really win.
Yeah. Paige, you went in there, and again, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I've seen the highlights. I've never sat down and watched a Power Slap event. I did last Friday because you were on there. And I watched the match before yours, the guy dumpling, and I watched your match. First time I've ever sat there and actually watched a Power Slap match. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't know your opponent, Christine, never heard of her before. I'm not gonna say that I had. So every time you got slapped, I was like flinching in my seat. I was like, oh God, here it comes. When you fight, every time you fight, there's the risk of getting knocked out. That's part of boxing, bare-knuckle, MMA, all that. But you don't go in there thinking, I'm going to get hit. Your job is to not get hit. So can you describe for me the feeling of like gearing up and just standing there and letting someone hit you? Because I can't even, like, that to me is the hardest part to wrap my head around. Like, not slapping someone, it's standing there and just letting them hit you.
Oh, for sure. Like the feeling so I won the coin toss. So that meant I got to slap first. And prior to that, we were speaking and I was like, shoot, I kind of would like to slap second just so I know what I'm going to be feeling. So then I can get, like really get pumped up. Cause a lot of times in fights, it takes that first like heavy shot to really like wake you up and make you feel like, you're in a fight. And Yeah, it was weird to stand there with like your hands behind your back, and I just stood there praying. I was like, all right, let me eat this. And once I took the first one, I had all the confidence in the world. And I was nervous like going into it, but it's more like just nerves. I don't want to get knocked out, and I don't want to like because you just don't know what to expect. Like that, I guess that's the only real like bad case scenario that can happen. And yeah, after I took the first one, I pretty much knew that I was gonna win.
Austin, I'll be honest, like they did crowd reaction and they kept showing you on the TV. And I'll be honest, I was watching you as intently as I was watching Paige because I want to see what Austin's reaction is. Because again, beforehand, I was like, I'm Austin. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. Obviously, you guys are always your biggest supporters in the corners, but I also know from you guys cornering each other and being around for that it's also the most nerve-wracking experience. Like when she fights, it's nerve-wracking for you, and vice versa. I know we've talked, Paige, when you've cornered Austin. So Austin, when you're sitting there watching this and you see that first slap, now she smiles, she shakes it off. She shook it off. You shook it off every single time, actually. But that first one, what's going through your head? Because again, you're not watching a typical fight where you're like duck and dodge and block and you're literally just watching your wife just get absolutely slapped in the face by the girl standing across from her.
Yeah. So my, that was definitely the most nerve-wracking part was that first shot. But even so, thinking back, the most nervous I was in the locker room and getting warmed up and, getting ready and stuff. Once we got out there, and especially once I see like her demeanor on the stage, and she seemed happy and excited, and like seeing that right there kind of eased everything. And I knew she knew what she was going to go out and do, and we had kind of talked before too. The biggest fear is you go out and you get slapped and stiffened up, and and someone's trying to wake you up, but I told her, I was like, you know what, especially in something like this, the win is just going out there and doing this, because you can't, like you said, there's no dodging and no trying to get away from it. You're gonna take a shot, and our body can only take so much, and just having the courage to go out and do something like this was a win in itself. So but definitely once she took that first shot, I was confident too. I knew she was gonna win.
What also helped with him is he technically wasn't in my corner. He got to be in the crowd. So when he was back in like the locker room with me, he would be like, hey, I'm going to go pee really fast. And he would like sneak away, and then he would come back and he'd like kiss me. And I'd be like, oh yeah, you just chugged a beer. And so he had like freedom to chill a little bit more. So have a few beers and relax before I
definitely help. Yes.
Less pressure for him.
Yeah, as I say, a little liquid courage to get through that kind of event. I understand. Paige, you end up taking you go the whole three rounds, and you take the slaps, and every single time you just smiled at her. You nearly knocked her out on at least two of the slaps. I mean, I think she wobbled the first one. You nearly knocked her out with the next two. But be honest, you just sit there and smile. But did any of it hurt? Did any of it, were you really affected? Because you either had the greatest poker face in the world or you didn't show it, because she showed it. I mean, she obviously dropped twice, but you were smiling. I was like, Jesus, did you not get hurt at all?
I honestly didn't. More it was the sting of being slapped. That's the only thing I could, compare it to. It was just more of a sting. And I felt the impact, of course. It didn't feel good. But when I compare it to taking a punch and being in bare knuckle boxing, it's entirely different. I remember there was a punch when me and Rachel Ostovich did our bare knuckle boxing match. She hit me with this overhand right. And all of a sudden I lost vision. And I was like, oh, crap, I got to hold on to her. And, there was where you need to really refocus your mind and let your mind clear. Whereas in this, I felt present the entire time. And there was never that dazed feeling. And I could see him yelling in the crowd after every slap. So that definitely it put a smile on my face. I could hear him screaming. It pumped me up. I just felt more present in this than any other fight, just because of the format. I could engage with the crowd and have fun in between each slap.
Yeah, it was a surreal feeling. Like I said, I mean, no offense to your opponent. But like I said, when you were getting slapped, I was like, God, here we go. Paige is about to get hit. But again, you came to like a champ. Now you said afterward, like, this is like, to me going in, I'm like, this is like a bucket list thing, like a cool event to do. Go out and do it. You kind of go back to your roots with the UFC a little bit with Dana and everything. You go in there and do it. It'll be fun. But then afterwards, you were pretty adamant. Like, I think I want to do it again. Now we're a couple days removed. So how are you feeling? Do you think you will? Have you had those conversations with him yet? Like, do you feel like you will go back and do more power slap?
We haven't had any conversations yet, but just looking back at the whole experience, like I just enjoyed the whole process so much. Like even in the back, like prior to fight night, like with my opponent was incredible. She was so nice. We were able to like talk beforehand, and just the whole process was so much more relaxed, like prior to like an MMA fight or a boxing match. And I enjoyed it the whole week. I just don't know why I wouldn't do it again. So, I'm hoping they come and make an offer, but even though, I kind of going into it was like, all right, I only have to do this one time. This is like you said, a bucket list thing. I want to go do power slap, prove that I can. But then afterwards it was like, shoot, that was really fun.
Austin, you said on the podcast today, like after watching, you're like, maybe I would do this. Now I know you said like the weight classes, when you get up to heavier weight classes, that's where you start seeing the guys get absolutely like flatlined, like you saw on Friday night. Are you seriously considering it, or is this like a podcast conversation where you're like, I thought about it, but maybe not?
If I can answer that, I feel like the same way that I view bare knuckle boxing, it's very similar to the way I view power slap. Like it's going to be fine for me to continue to do both, but I just think like the power that he has and like the power at his weight class, I just feel like it's so much more dangerous. But of course, you can do whatever you want. But. So
now to answer, definitely, I think for me, it would be more of a bucket list thing, and when I'm closer to being finished, and something that I would enjoy to go do once, and giving props to the whole production of it was such a fun event. Just the ambiance, the crowd, it's not quite like a UFC fight. It's not like a bare knuckle fight. It's more of like,
it's a show.
It's a show. It's a party going on. There's celebrities everywhere. And it's a really, really, really fun thing. And I never could have imagined like being so for something or thinking it was so cool. But because like I said, thinking back before I had ever experienced it, or like you said, I'd never even watched an event. I've only seen highlights and stuff. And so then to be there and see the whole thing, like it's a really, really fun time. It's cool.
Yeah, it seemed like a party. It seemed like a concert almost versus like a sporting event, So, now, listen, I'm not going to get into like I'm not going to ask you like the financial side, but because Power Slap is so new, we don't really know much about it in terms of like, what are they paying? What are these guys doing? Now, Paige, I know you and your management team are fiercely negotiating every deal you have. I'm not going to ask for financials, but can I ask, like, was it worth your while? Like, was this more about the experience, or they had to pay you well? Like, cause I have no idea. We have no idea. We hear Dana talk all the time. It's bigger than soccer, which that might be a little bit of hyperbole, but we have no idea. Like, we don't have any baseline like we do the UFC. Like, we know the minimum the UFC is like 10-10 or 12-12. Did you was this financially worthwhile, or was it more about just the experience?
For me, I took it on 2 weeks notice financially to make, I did well for a 2-week notice situation. Even like a lot of what I feel like you get paid for in fighting is the fight camp and the dedication, the long, the long camps. And for me, I'm really happy, and I'm happy to do it again. There was so many pros going into it that when my manager, came back with the pay, he was like, hey, this is what it is. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to do it, just because I didn't want to negotiate. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted to go have the experience. And there were so many other like pros to the whole week to compete. We got to go to the fights. We got to just be in Vegas, be a part of the UFC umbrella again. And more, it wasn't like a financial move for me. It was more just like a power move and a bucket list move.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously you won. It was incredible. Again, you brought in a lot of audience, because I know everybody from the MMA world that's like very much like we all were going into this thing. I'm not really a big power slap guy. We all tuned in and watched. I was on the Rumble app watching it. It worked. I mean, they drew me in because I guarantee if you weren't on there last Friday, I would not have watched. So it worked. I mean, it absolutely worked. I watched your match. So they got a draw. And I also got to mention, like, I know that like other people have talked about doing this, and I feel like, you may in a way be like the door to open for more fighters who maybe want to try this. I don't know. Again, I don't know if I'm really going to sign up to like watch every power slap event now, but if you do it again, Paige, I'll watch your power slap again.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we're right now, we just got back to Florida, so we're just kind of waiting for the next business call, next move, and we'll figure out what's next for me.
So now, Austin, you had said on the podcast, and I remember covering the story, you had said back in, I want to say February, you had secured your release when the whole PFL Bellator thing came through, and you said you decided on your own to like, kind of break that, and you had a goal of getting to the UFC. Where are you at right now? Because I know obviously you're very busy and you got things going on, but I know you're still fighting. So where are you at in terms of your career? Because I know that was what you said in February, and it's been a couple of months now. Here we are in July. Where are you at in terms of like fighting?
So, everything that went through with Bellator and the PFL and the merger and stuff, I would have liked to have fought 8 months ago, and I had a little injury, and I'd kind of had a setback on a previous injury that I'd had too. And then with all the uncertainty with Bellator and the PFL, there was like a few month period where it was like, there was no fights nothing was getting booked and all this. And so once all that got figured out, we kind of came up with a game plan. And I mean, I train full time all the time, and no matter how busy we are and doing that. So just being ready. And then I'd also made the decision too, that I was going to go back down to 170. And so working on getting my weight back down into a place where, if a big opportunity arose in a week or 2 weeks, I'd be able to make 170 safely and be good there and stuff. So we had some good conversations over the weekend, and I think we got a good game plan with our management team and everything. And so, I'd like to get a fight booked, wherever it's at here in the next few weeks, and have something done by, the end of July, beginning of August and stuff. So then I can progress forward from there.
Is there a world, and I feel like I know the real answer, but I also know like what you want. Is there a world where we could finally see you fight Dillon Danis? Is that possible? Can we see this, please?
I mean, we haven't ever heard anything back, but I would sure love that for sure. And I think we could make some good moves with that. But with that, I have I've never heard anything back about, we've made it public that I would love to fight him, and I would do it, under whatever stipulations that I'm assuming he would have or whatever. But yeah, we haven't ever heard anything back.
I think the silence is deafening. That guy talks more than anybody on the internet, which is saying a lot. And the fact that he never addressed that pretty much said everything I think needed to be said. If I'm not like, I don't want to call anybody out like that, but like, it seemed like a no-brainer. He wanted to talk trash about Paige. Well, guess what? You got a husband who's a damn good fighter. How about you guys fight? And then that just went silent. I was like, I kind of feel like we got the answer there. So in your heart of hearts, be honest, Austin, in your heart of hearts, do you believe you'll ever actually fight Dillon Danis? Be honest.
No.
No, I don't. Dillon would never fight him. I don't know that he'll ever fight again. So.
Yeah. Dillon loves to stay famous by not fighting, which is odd for a guy who calls himself a fighter. And after that whole Logan Paul disaster, I don't know anyone's really wanting to pay to see him fight at that point, be honest. So.
There's that too. Yeah. I'm sure he demands a lot of money, and I would just go fight him for whatever. Yeah, exactly. I go fight him for free. So yeah.
Yeah. Is the goal still the UFC? Is that the ultimate goal?
Yeah, definitely. I think getting into the sport, that's pretty much all of our goals. And, we want to go fight in the UFC and go see what we can do. And, of course, I'm coming off a loss and had setbacks and stuff. But, I feel mentally just strong, and I understand mistakes being made and stuff like that. And I've just kept my head down and kept working and staying ready and staying prepared for the next thing. So, I had a little bit of time off. I had a couple injuries that had to be addressed, but I truly feel the healthiest I've been in a little while now, and I'm just excited to get back out and compete, and especially watching her and stuff just really adds more fuel to the fire.
Yeah, not that you need my opinion. I thought you did a lot of great things in middleweight, but I always thought you were going to be a force at welterweight. I thought you'd get signed after the Contender Series and everything. So I understood why you went up. We had lots of conversations about that, but I always felt like you were going to be a top welterweight, and obviously you did great things in middleweight, but it just always seemed like you were built for welterweight. That was just my opinion.
And his only losses were up at 185. And so now at this point, it's just like, we're just waiting for our managers to get a promotion, to get something booked so he can continue forward. And the nice thing is he does stay ready. So we had some like talks with promotions where we thought he was getting a fight, and it's like we just kept waiting and waiting, and then it just keeps falling through. So we're just patiently waiting for something to actually come to an end goal so he can continue on.
Yeah.
Now, Paige, you're obviously very busy and you have a lot of things going on. I had read a headline, and I read the article because you know how headlines are, and you had talked, I think it was TMZ before the slap fight, and you had said that you've kind of come to the realization that fighting is now a part-time job for you. It's more of a hobby than anything. Can I ask clarification on that? Not that you were misquoted. I read the quotes, but like, obviously you've got other things going on outside of fighting, but you've been really busy lately. You already had a boxing match. You got the slap fight. And from my understanding, I know you can't announce anything. My understanding is that I've heard the Elle Brooke rematch is probably going to be October-ish is what I've heard. I assume you're still planning on doing that. So that's a pretty busy calendar for a year, but is that where your head's at in terms of fighting? Like, now are you kind of taking it as a part-time thing versus like, this is your whole world, or how are you approaching it now?
I think obviously, you know how headlines are, the way it was like quoted, they were, definitely a little bit clickbaity, but the way I phrased it and the way I see it. So I was at sparring at American Top Team, and I was doing MMA sparring. I just, was like, frick it, I'll just keep, do all the trainings because I didn't know what was coming up at the time. And that interview was a really long time ago, actually. So I was like doing MMA sparring, and we went 5 super hard rounds and then wrestled. And then I went to the garbage and I puked. And then Dan Lambert comes over to me and he's like, crazy that you picked this for your part-time job or something. Like, Dan had phrased it that like, how like I picked a really hard part-time job. And that's because, my main sources of income don't come from fighting. My main sources of income come from all the other things that I do, the investments that I have, our real estate portfolio, our OnlyFans, of course, and endorsement deals. So for like, quote unquote, fighting would technically be my part-time job just because it is, one of my lower sources of income at this period of time. But that doesn't mean that I'm treating it as a part-time job where, I'm only putting in minimal hours. It's the same amount of hours. It's just in comparison to the other things that we have going on, it's just not as lucrative, but that doesn't mean that I don't love it and I'm not dedicated to it.
Yeah.
6 or 7 years ago, when you were, when you were in the UFC, like if you said, hey, I'm going to leave the UFC, your options were Bellator or maybe one championship. Like there wasn't much else. Now you've obviously done boxing, and that opportunity can go beyond just what you did with Misfits. Of course, you did BKFC. I know we've talked many times, not going to rehash that. You still have a fight left. I know you still intend on fulfilling that fight. Do you realistically see MMA in your future, just because you do have so many other options? And the one thing I will say, and I know I talked to Ben Rothwell, a lot of the other guys who do BKFC, is like their bodies get put through so much less just strain not having to do MMA training because you're not wrestling, you're not grappling. Now, I know you just said you were doing MMA training that day, but because you have so many other opportunities in the fight world, do you see MMA as like a real, like, do you think there's a world where you do another MMA fight, or because you have so many other opportunities, you don't really need to do MMA?
I mean, obviously I love MMA. I absolutely love it. I just feel like when I look at the promotions and like the playing ground that we have as fighters, we have the UFC for MMA. Of course, now, PFL is somewhat in the mix and won championship. But then when you look at the other promotions that have come out, and I do think that a lot of it comes from the quote unquote influencer world, they've been able to build these boxing promotions that have a big payday. There's just opportunities all over to really capitalize and make the most money as you can. And for me, I just love competition. So whether it be MMA or boxing or bare knuckle boxing or power slap, I'm just going to go where, business and financially it makes sense, but also it just gets me excited. So right now, boxing has been extremely fun and I've been loving the training and it's a huge opportunity for me. But at the same time, power slap has been incredible. So I don't really like to say yes or no that I'm going to not do MMA anymore or do MMA or do all these other things. I really don't even know what I'm going to do in the next future. I have no idea.
That's the most true. That's the most true answer right there. She has no idea.
I wait for my manager to call me and I just do whatever he says.
She could wake up tomorrow and decide to do some other crazy shit. I never know. She never really even knows.
If you told me a month and a half ago you're doing power slap, I said, come on now, Paige, you're not doing power slap. Come on now. I know, but you never know.
If I got a call to go do bull riding, I would go do it. If I got a call to do NASCAR, I'd probably go do that. I just want to do what's fun and exciting. And of course, there's well thought through process about like the financials and business side of things. But also we are lucky that we're in a place that like, I can go just do whatever excites me, whatever I want to do.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, because I know I talked real quick about the Elle Brooke thing. I assume that rematch is still on the table for later this year. Now, listen, I'll fully admit when you had the first fight with her, I went in, I told everybody, I wish you could read the private messages I share with people when going in that fight. I was like, Paige is going to absolutely kill this girl. Like, I thought it was just going to be, and credit to Elle. Like, I honestly did not see that coming. And I think I almost misjudged the fight because I was so shocked that she hung around. I thought you were just going to blow her out of the water in 30 seconds. She actually showed up and actually fought. Can I ask you the honest question, though, looking back at that? Do you feel you underestimated her in any way? Because I know I did. I was like, Paige is going to kill this girl. Like, this is not going to be a fight. And then she showed up and actually showed some pretty good skill. I was shocked. I mean, and I'm not trying to insult her. I thought it was going to be a complete mismatch. And credit to her. Like, she stuck around.
Yeah, no, I didn't underestimate her at all. I knew that, she had been dedicated the last 2 years to straight boxing. Whereas, I took the fight on like 5 weeks notice and it was my first ever boxing match. And no, I didn't underestimate her at all. I went in there and of course I had, a 2+ year layoff and we go in there with a game plan to try to outbox her. And I'm addicted to brawling. I like to go out there and just swing for the fences and try to knock people out. And I think that's why power slap makes so much sense to me, is because it's like the ultimate test of toughness. And I get to just go out there and just smack somebody and get smacked. And no, I'm excited for the next one. We're still kind of waiting for a call to figure out when that matchup will be. We don't actually really know anything.
Yeah.
So just patiently waiting.
Yeah, and if I could give my my thought on it too, I told Paige, like, when she finished her fight camp for that camp, it was the most dedicated I had probably ever seen Paige, like, preparing for a fight and just everything she did, from the mental work to, losing 30 or 35 pounds, in a fight camp to get down to weight and whatnot. So there was definitely like no underestimation. She was sparring hard, 3 times a week and doing everything to prepare for it. And like you said, credit to Elle. I felt that Elle more rose to the occasion and the competition than what it looked like in her past fights. Because she was definitely fighting girls in the past who, weren't as skilled and stuff. And I felt like she went into this match and matched more of the Paige's skill set and toughness and stuff. And, it was an awesome fight and a really good fight. I'm a little biased and thought that the draw was maybe a little silly, but like you said, she was tough and she hung in there. And there was 4 or 5 times in the fight where I thought Paige was going to end it and finish her. And, she had looked hurt and stuff and she dug deep and went through. So yeah, definitely props to her.
The night of the fight, and I can be honest with you, the night of the fight, I scored a draw. And I think looking back on it, because I talked to Malky about this, I think looking back on it, I scored it skewed because I was shocked she made it. Like, I know that sounds terrible, but I think I scored it based on, I can't believe Elle Brooke stuck around to the end. And I'll fully admit looking back at it now, you won the fight, but in my head, I was like, I can't believe she actually hung around. So again, I underestimated her. I didn't think she was going to hang around, and credit to her, she did. And so I fully admit I probably misjudged the fight because I was like, wow, she hung around with a professional fighter, a really good professional fighter for 5 rounds. And so again, I fully admit, like, I was just stunned that she did it. Now, with that being said, Austin, for you, I know you're talking about MMA and eventually getting to UFC. I've heard, maybe you guys have heard these rumors. I don't know if you heard them or not. I heard there was a possibility of Misfits of maybe doing some MMA at some point. I heard some rumors about that because I know Mike Perry had told me he had talked about fighting Dillon Danis in MMA, and I don't know if that was going to be under Misfits or not. Are you open to doing Misfits, or is that something you'd actually consider? Because I don't know. I know you've been asked this question before because I know how stressful it'd be, like you and Paige fighting on the same night. I can't imagine the stress of dealing with that, but come on now. Like that would be a show, right? Like that would be a big show.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we had some of the same conversations and some ideas and not to like talk too much into it, but I believe, it's MMA with a twist of some stuff. So it would definitely be something that if it came to fruition, I'd be very much interested in and would be a fun thing. And, maybe both of us fighting on the same night and just to do it once. I don't think we'd ever make that a habit, but to do it one time, I think would be a cool thing and something special.
That's what we talked about forever. Like we just assumed, like right after you left the UFC page, I was like, you're going to go to Bellator and you and Austin are going to share a card together. Obviously other things happen, but is that almost like a bucket list? Is that a bucket list item? You guys fighting on the same card? Is that like one time?
I think he thought that I would sign his Bellator and he'd fight on the same card too. I threw everybody a curveball. Yeah. I mean, it would be an incredible bucket list just to say that we did it one time competing on the same night. And obviously I think that would be the promotion right now that would most likely happen like in the near future. So, we'll see. That's definitely something that we would want to do, not make a habit of just because of the stress, but do it one time.
I know I would be curious to see how our nerves are, us both doing it. And cause it's such a weird feeling. I was nervous the whole time for her slap box and it would be a funny.
It might be better because I'd be so nervous, being so busy being nervous for him that I would forget to be nervous for myself.
Yeah.
Maybe under the adjusted rule set, maybe that's how you get Dillon Danis to fight you. You have to fight like one arm behind your back. Maybe then he'll fight you. That's how you get it done. So I'd still favor you to win that fight. Just saying. I'm just throwing it out there. So. So now, real quick before I let you guys go, you're always busy again. You never slow down, and as you said, you don't really have anything on the table. So what, I know it's a big question to answer when you're just coming off your power slap match, but what do you feel like the rest of 2024 is going to look like for you guys? Like, I imagine, Austin, you want to get a fight in this year. Paige, I talked about boxing. Are you just kind of leaving things open in terms of like what else you do the rest of this year? Because again, weirdly, you've already had a pretty busy start to the year.
Yeah, for me, I'm just waiting for, I guess he's in the same boat. We're just waiting for a manager's call. So it's just like eagerly waiting to figure out what the next move is, trying to figure out if the Misfits boxing is going to happen at the end of the year, seeing if Power Slaps calls, and we'll just go from there. It's just kind of waiting for the call and seeing what we want to do next. But for sure for him, it'll be an MMA fight, hopefully sooner than later. Yeah,
our family also calls, and when you guys are going to come visit, in Alaska, and we're in like a weird spot right now. We're like, well, we don't have anything going, but we definitely could have something, next week or in 2 weeks. So it's kind of hard to plan anything right now.
Are you, Austin, you being from Alaska, when you go home now, do you feel like a wuss now because you're so used to Florida weather? Because I know, like, every time, like, I live in Ohio, we get all the seasons, and anytime guys from California, like, I'll never forget, Gilbert Melendez came out here for a car one time, and it was like 50 degrees and kind of windy, and he had a freaking parka on, like, he was freezing at 50 degrees. I was like, dude, it's 50. It's California people are not built. So, like, when you go home, are you like, man, I've kind of lost my toughness of Alaska now?
I feel like it's the opposite. Like, we're still cold weather people. When we're here in Florida, there was a night I went out and I was wearing like a cute crop top and jeans, and everybody else was in snow coats, and it was 70 out.
Yeah.
Like guys, it's 70.
No, I think I'm pretty sure our last trip we had went, I think last winter, and I was still it was the middle of winter and I was still running around in shorts and stuff. So
shorts
Okay.
and Crocs.
yeah, shorts, Crocs, and then like a big jacket or something.
Real quick, I forgot to ask you, Paige. Obviously, we talked before about you doing the movie. When's your movie coming out? I haven't heard anything about that in a little while.
I don't know. I'm impatiently waiting too. Last I heard, it was supposed to come out in like February of last year, and then I have no idea. But I think
there was stuff on it. I think there was stuff with like the writer's strike or something.
Oh yeah, right? There was the writer's strikes. And I think they had to do some reshooting, and they had to wait until after the writer's strike to do it.
Yeah.
But all's looking well. It's supposed to come out eventually.
Yeah, we still haven't even seen it. So yeah.
Do you think you'll do more acting?
Yeah, I actually had signed a contract for a movie, one of the new kickboxer movies. It's Kickboxer Armageddon, and I think the shoot date of that got pushed back as well. So like it kind of worked out because I was able to box and do power slap. So we're waiting for more info on that too.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. Again, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I'm suddenly becoming the biggest power slap fan in the world. But if you do power slap, Paige, I will watch you do power slap. Austin, if you ever decide to do power slap, I'll watch power slap. That might be the limit of my power slap fandom, but I may watch that. But congrats on the win. Honestly, like I said, it was as much as I was sitting there wincing when you were getting hit, I was happy to see you get a win. It was awesome to see you out there and get the win, obviously. And, Austin, man, I hope we see a fight. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be Dillon Danis. Don't think that's going to happen, but I think we will see a fight soon. And man, yeah, keep doing what you guys are doing. You guys are some of the busiest people in the world, even when you're not fighting. So thank you for carving out a little time for me. I do appreciate it. And let's catch up again in the near future.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you, Dan.